I hope we're live, ladies and gentlemen. It's Saturday, April 21st, 2018, ladies and gentlemen. And where are all the nerds at? They're on the internet. See on our Facebook page right there. Come on in, say hi to us and all that. We're live. And we got the nerds here. Okay, roll call, guys. I'm Renee.
I'm Annette.
Hey, it's Ramon. And
Phantom Crespo?
And of course, there,
Hi,
the
guys.
attention, sir. This is Ian Puhlman, sir, of Sun City Sci-Fi.
Hi guys.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It is
Thanks
so
for
nice
having
to
me.
find you. Yeah, it is so awesome to have you back, sir, because just a little history again for our members here. And Ian Pullman runs Sun City Sci-Fi, one of the most awesome conventions here in El Paso, Texas. And you've put together some amazing shows and all that. And, you know, we've had a long history. Ian was also the guy who gave us our first break at a Comic-Con, which is, and I'm still getting the Facebook post of it. And can you believe it was like, what, 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, something like 6 years or something like that. It's been a while.
Yeah, and again, it started. I remember that con. It was at the Marriott Hotel. We had Peter Mayhew, such an awesome guy. We had a whole list of guests on it, and Star Wars voices and all that. I remember Tom Kane was super nice
Yeah,
to
he was
us.
here.
Yeah, and you put it all together, man. And you got us interviews with young Logan. You know, I mean, sorry.
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel Logan, young Boba Fett. See, I mixed it up here. And you got me to make out with Marina Sirtis too. So
And also I want to pay the, respects to Mini Me who just passed away, which you also brought him here to El Paso as well.
Yeah, he was at our last con. It was pretty shocking to hear that today, that news that he had passed.
Mm-hmm.
He was a nice guy.
Vern Troyer again, he chatted with us and all that. Yeah, he was, I don't want to say he was out there, but yeah, he was kind of an out there guy in a nice way. In a nice way, I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So our thoughts and prayers go out to that family, or go out to his family. And you know, it's a tragedy. We lost him so young. You know, he wasn't that far older than us. You know, but it's always sad when we lose actors like that. And you know, before we switch to today's, I gotta give certain attention to certain props and certain things that happened. And again, switching tones. I'm switching tones. I don't want to. You know, we started down. I'm kind of moving up here. And thumbs up for Rampage. It was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
was it now?
Yeah.
It was. It's
was
surprisingly. That's why I posted up a poster earlier in the week with the Rampage movie, and it said possibly the greatest video game movie ever made. Because the
but
bar
I
was
also
so low.
Yeah. And see that was the part I caught. Yeah, because the bar was so low.
But you know, of course, have you seen it,
Rampage was
Crespo?
really good. Yeah, as I saw it twice. First, I went on a date. Then the second time, I went to see it on my own. Because first time, I must admit, I was a little distracted. 'Cause, well,
Stop bragging.
she was staring at the rock. I was staring at her. But the second time, I got to see the little Rampage video game Easter egg, which was nice having an arcade cabinet. But aside the story changes, it was really faithful to the essence of the game. So I was pumped for it, which is surprising since it's a video game movie and it stars The Rock, and that's usually the sign for like a really bad movie. And first Jumanji, then Rampage have made me eat a lot of The Rock crow.
Well, now again, we're at the movie theater. They have the poster for him, like where he's like jumping from to one building to the next. Have you guys seen that poster?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
the skyscraper.
Yeah, the skyscraper one. And you know, on the internet, they've made, oh, excuse me, I have back spasms. On the internet, they were showing like physics let's just say there's no way he's going to make it. And I just love, that The Rock is trying to do all these movies, and I'm just like, wow, Rampage just surprised the hell out of me. And for those that haven't seen it, you got to check it out. It's worthwhile. It was a popcorn movie, and to me, it's kind of the start of the summer movies.
Yeah, I have to give 2 thumbs up to the gorilla.
Yeah. And suddenly you got us a PG-13 rating, Chris. Right.
Well,
but
we're talking Rampage, so let's go back. Let's go back to the main course.
Yeah, which of course, again, Ian specializes in Star Wars, and the long history you guys have had. You had, with Boba Fest, and I know you were. Excuse me. Oh, sorry, my back. You were trying not to have issues with Disney over the Boba Fest thing. I know that. Did you finally clear that up?
We never. The Boba Fest wasn't bad. It was when we wanted to do the Star Wars Expo. That's when things got hairy, so we had to change it to the Fan Expo.
Oh, okay.
So that was all cleared up, and we're just doing it everything under the Sun City Sci-Fi name now.
Okay. And one of the reasons we have you on here is because we're a couple of weeks away from May the 4th,
yes,
which all Star Wars fans celebrate. And you, sir, are having your first event in what's it been? Almost 4 years?
2015 was our last event. So yeah,
oh my Lord.
3 years.
We're several years, 3 years down the road here. But yeah, it's going to be our first event, May 4th, Star Wars Night. We have, at the pizza joint downtown here in El Paso, Texas, for anyone who's been.
Now, I got to ask you, are they going to charge for this?
This is an absolutely free event, all ages. It's from 6 to 11 p.m. on May the 4th. So it's going to be an all ages event. We're going to have cosplay, we're going to have some gaming, and of course, lots of pizza. And, so it'll be a whole bunch of fun. Great way to celebrate May the 4th, for sure.
All right. And when you said, events and all that, can you tell us a little bit about the events you guys are going to have there? Because you're not just going to show Star Wars on the screens, are you?
No, we're going to do a kind of a little viewing party and discussion for a couple of the Clone Wars episodes. We're going to show 2 or 3 Star Wars Clone Wars episodes, and then we're going to have a little discussion about them, and that'll kick things off. And then we're going to have our Star Wars trivia hosted by local comedian Adam Dominguez. You may or may not have seen him around. He's part of Hazardous Entertainment. He'll be the MC for the entire night, but the Star Wars trivia is definitely great to catch. Then we're going to have a character drawing workshop hosted by Manuel Hernandez from Merc Studios.
Which, again, I'm showing right now to our viewers the Sun City Sci-Fi Facebook page. So, again, they could see that. And it's awesome. I know Eddie Nunez. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, he will be for our Comic-Con in September. But yeah, there's just going to be lots of stuff. We're going to have the character drawing studio, or workshop. He'll teach you how to draw a basic Star Wars character. Then we're going to have our big costume contest. We're also going to have a Battlefront 2 tournament, but not the new one, the old one from 2005.
The good one.
PS2. Yeah, so that'll be fun for all the people that are playing video games on the PS2 back then.
That's gonna mess people up, man, because they're so used to the new stuff. It's gonna be a shock to the system.
It's very true. I plugged it in yesterday and I was messing with it, trying to play a game, and the controls are so unresponsive compared to what they are now. I was like, how did we even play these games back then?
Very carefully.
People don't understand. That's why there's that term, Nintendo skills. Like you got a modern player now, and you give them like some of the old school games, they can't play them.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, you mentioned the Star Wars. There was a Nintendo Star Wars game Super Nintendo. Sorry, Super Nintendo, and you can still find them online and all that. And the original games were extremely difficult to play. People don't realize how hard they were. And they have like modern players and all that try to play these old games no, they can't. It's just like playing Ninja Gaiden and all that on the Nintendo. No, you can't. It took something to beat those games.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like the Back to the Future too. You know, where they bring out that old game, you know, for the shooting and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, what? That's a baby game," you know. You know, kids nowadays they just don't understand.
Exactly. So it should be fun. The Battlefront 2 tournament. You know, I don't think anyone's going to have a big leg up over anyone else. It's even playing field. You know.
Well, I remember playing the Battlefield game, and yeah, you know, it had its cool moments. At the same time, it had such frustrating moments.
Mm-hmm.
And well, even now, you know, just to criticize a little bit, yeah, you know, the games today, yeah, you know, they fell a little short. That's why, again, they give Battlefront free. You know, it's free on Xbox. I don't know for the PlayStation users, but it was free for a while because everybody kind of just was so disappointed by it.
Yeah, you know, and we're in an era here where you don't buy a game with everything included now. You buy part of the game, and then they release the DLC later, and then more content. And it's like by the end of the game, you spent like $200 trying to get everything, and it's like, wow, I used to just pay $50 and get the whole thing.
Sadly, you know, and again, I think we discussed that in a couple of shows. That era is gone, where you would get the whole game, and you know, it kind of is a shame. It has its drawbacks to it, but I remember, you know, the frustration and the controversy with the old Battlefront. Well, sorry, with the new one that came out, that you had to play like tons and tons before you pulled out a character.
Yeah, it was like 10 hours for one character or something of gameplay.
And that's just ridiculous. I mean, come on. We need to pull out Ray. We got to look at Ray.
This game was all right, the new Battlefront 2. I play it occasionally, but you know, it has its shortcomings for sure.
Yeah, it does. And you know, just to talk about, I got to mention the trivia because I plan on being in that trivia one for a little bit. How hard are you going to get?
I'm not sure because I've given complete control to Adam over the trivia.
Oh, no.
The grand prize winner will get 2 tickets to see Solo, a Star Wars story, when it comes out. So that'll be the grand prize for the trivia. And then a bunch of other little autograph photos and T-shirts and you know, posters and stuff will be for you know, the early round winners. But grand prize, 2 tickets to see Solo, a Star Wars story.
Well, again, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But again, it's going to be Ian. Can you tell us again?
All right, it's going to be Star Wars night on May 4th at the Pizza Joint downtown from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Totally free, all ages. We're going to have cosplay, gaming, some vendors, art, live art. It's going to be a heck of a way to celebrate May 4th. The 501st is going to be there, so make sure to come down.
Oh, we're looking forward to that, sir. And again, we'll go back to that topic again, but we got to talk a little bit about Star Wars now because I know, you know, people online. I'm friends with Ian on Facebook, and there's been some discussion with Star Wars. And I want to talk a little bit about the history before we get to the modern stuff, you know, and where our connection to Star Wars comes from. You know, as a kid, I always loved Star Wars. And Ian, you know, you're a little younger than us. I know that. I was a kid when the first one came out. Well, again, I was, you know, it came out in 78. I was like 3 years old. So I saw my real love came with Empire Strikes Back. But again, I saw Star Wars, the original, on movie. You know, this is before VHS tapes and all that. And I saw it on TV, and they had reruns, or again, they had playbacks in whole theaters. And I just fell in love with Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and I had the toys. And God, I wish I kept the toys.
I know, right?
Yeah,
especially you know, that Luke Skywalker compactor where, you know, you had Luke in there, and you know, it had a little swing on there to get you across the bridge to Leia with Leia and whatnot.
Oh, that's a Death Star playset. I wanted that as a kid so bad.
I ended up getting somebody's hand-me-down, but man, I love that thing.
I was so jealous, man. I always wanted that one. When I was a kid, I had the Millennium Falcon. and I loved that vehicle. It was huge, to a little kid that was huge, and I just loved it so much. I had it with me, for a long, long time. And one of my favorite Christmas memories was that my aunt went out and she got me the Darth Vader case. Remember the huge Darth Vader case? Case?
Yeah.
And she put every Star Wars figure inside of it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I love her and I don't even know her.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in one full swoop, I got everybody, and I just enjoyed, playing with the Star Wars guys. And then when Empire comes back, I enjoyed playing in the snow, reenacting those scenes. I put my my Han Solo, and I froze him in the ice, ice cube tray, And so, again, you guys play with them. I mean, what were your memories with it?
Oh, geez, man. I remember, being mad because, at the time, Luke Skywalker would have this, the lightsaber in his arm, and you would just push the plastic piece out, and then after a while, that stuff would get loose and it would come out. So I started taking the bread ties and sticking it in the arm. So that was my lightsaber. I was like, yeah. And then my people, we're Puerto Rican. My people drank and stuff, so they would always get those little swords.
Yeah, I remember the swords.
So I started trying to use the little swords with them until the thumbs broke. That's what you call playing with imagination. Kids don't have that nowadays. Lego breaks, bam.
Nowadays we have a tablet.
Yeah. And they're playing that Star Wars command thing where you have to pay money and then you have to wait days for something to happen.
Yeah. I had a lot of the 90s, being a 90s baby, I had a lot of the 90s Star Wars toys, and the prequels were my movies.
I imagine that's where you came in.
Yeah, so he grew up with the buffed up Luke Skywalker, looking all stocky.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, the Power of the Force figures.
Yeah, I remember people were searching high and low for those, and yeah, they had all huge muscles on them. But I remember, I think, Ian, you came in again with the special editions. I mean, with the re-releases and all that. And I remember I had the most fun. At that time I was dating Annette. And I remember that we went with my mom. And my mom loves Star Wars. And, we went with my Aunt Sandra, the one who gave me the toys. And we all sat down again in that theater, and we saw the special edition Star Wars. And, that just blew my mind with the CGI and all that. I remember the whole theater going, ooh, ooh, with the extra scenes and those CGIs. Remember those?
Yeah. I recall that one day I had no school, so they had like the trilogy, the special editions. I spent the entire day at the cinema watching one straight up Star Wars, Empire, Return of the Jedi, and it was glorious. And these are the very first special editions before George went overboard with the whole adding everything and visa free that I shall never speak about.
So let's just ask this round table. Han shot first. Yes.
Yeah, yes. Well, and see, and I was just about to bring that up. Now check this out. There are adults that have only grown up seeing Greedo shoot first.
Oh, that's just wrong.
That's bad.
I want to start a charity now. But like you mentioned before, I mean, you mentioned again the prequels, and I remember again Crespo said the word glorious, and yeah, it was. When we saw those special editions, that was the perfect word for it. And we got a glimpse, and we found out, oh, they're making episode 1, 2, and 3. We're like, oh wow, so excited. And I remember seeing the trailer for episode 1. And I thought, wow, that's going to be amazing. Wow, you know, the Jedis. And I want to speak up.
If
I
you're
did
gonna
not,
bring up Jar Jar, I'm gonna smack you.
no, I did not hate the movie. That's all I did not hate it.
It's better than episode 2 was. Episode 2 was the low point of the prequels, for sure.
Oh,
Wow.
no, this is where we're going to separate now. See? Oh, now,
Yeah.
see, we were friends up to this point. Oh,
I like to, you know, because it talked about how they had to bring in two no matter what, because otherwise how the hell do you get Leia and, you know, and Luke? Okay, they had to explain some type of love interest because they had to explain where the kids come from. You know,
The thing is, it's not that they're really bad, because there were some good ideas, there were some bad ideas, but I think the issue was that with the original trilogy, George Lucas had people that say, "No, no, George, that doesn't feel quite right. This needs to be fixed." Or, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's polish it." But for the prequels, it was like, it's George Lucas, and the people around him grew up with the original Star Wars, so they were like blinded by, like, by seeing their god, and no one dared to say, "That feels kind of iffy, George. Maybe we should try something different here." And that's why we got some stilted scenes, especially Hayden Christensen's acting as Mannequin Skywalker.
I think you're right about that one, because, you know, a lot of times people get very starstruck, you know, and they can't speak up, you know, against people, you know. I mean, it's just like, you know, what happened with you know, with Michael Jackson and with Prince. Nobody spoke up to them and say, "Hey, you know what, you're gonna have to take a step back." You know what I mean? Had somebody actually, you know, stood up to them, then maybe they'd be alive. You know, so the same thing. You know, I think you're absolutely right. You know, when people see their you know, their God, as you want to say it, or say, you know, they're like, "Oh my God, you know, I don't want to argue with you because you know everything." You know.
well, part of it, you know, just to go back, compare, and again, I'm going to pick your brainy in, so you have to justify this so I don't kill you. You know, episode 1, yeah, it wasn't perfect because, again, the one thing, and some other guy did this great video where he analyzed it. There was no real protagonist. You know, who was the main guy in episode 1?
I mean, that's true.
Yeah, you know, in episode 4, we clearly see Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the guy. That was our guy. And then for the second one, it clearly became Anakin. You know, I mean, the guy, you know, George Lucas kind of admitted, you know, that, okay, I kind of went off the rails with the first one. He tried to do it, you know, he fell for that old thing where you try to do everything, you end up doing nothing.
Right.
And yeah, he didn't focus, you know, and I think if he took out, and I hated this because I enjoyed this character, if he took out Qui-Gon Jinn and lessened his role, like if it was Obi-Wan's story, and you see Obi-Wan kind of as the follower and Qui-Gon kind of like a lesser role, like what I was saying is that scene in Tatooine, that instead of it was Qui-Gon going to the desert and city and doing all that, it would have been Obi-Wan. Then clearly people would have said, okay, this is Obi-Wan, and it was Obi-Wan who met Anakin and, you know, led all this, with Qui-Gon being a little bit of a minor character and still following the same format. It would have been a little better. I think people would have connected a little better to Obi-Wan's character. And then for episode 2, Anakin did it should have, it was right, he should have became a little bit more involved, you know, but yeah, he got a little more emotional. And yeah, some of those, I will give you this, some of that, you know, the falling in love scenes were just a bit awkward.
Well, no, because in your teenage years, when you fall head over heels over a woman, you do get that stupid.
Well,
okay, so I want to.
That part is true. That the awkwardness. Especially think about this. Think about this.
It's like when you
Little
end up
Annie
at the
was
movie
like
theater staring at the
8
girl
or
lick.
Yeah, on his
Yeah.
date, he's staring at the girl.
So yeah, I understand. I understand Annie's awkwardness, but to be fair, Annie was like 8 or 9 when he fell in love with Padme. So the kid kind of grew up a bit too fast, and puberty and the whole Jedi thing.
Well, no,
Those two things
because
don't
like,
match, and that makes him a bit socially awkward around girls. That's understandable. But the only bad part is that George's pacing in the movie kinda kinda ruined it for the viewers because man, that movie drags on and on and on. I think it's longer than all the Lord of the Ring movies combined.
Well, okay, so let me pick on Ian's brain. Why didn't you like part two?
Okay, and let me start by saying I didn't dislike it. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I just think it's my least favorite of the three. Um, just Hayden Christensen's acting wasn't. He was much better in Revenge of the Sith than he was in Attack of the Clones. Like his acting had loosened up a lot more. He was very stiff. The love story seemed, kind of forced. I don't know. Natalie and Hayden just didn't have the right chemistry to pull off
I,
that love story. I think
that's what I think the problem was too. There was no chemistry between the two.
exactly. That was my biggest. You just as a kid, it's like whatever when I saw it, but now when I watch it, I'm like, you can kind of see that they just don't have the right chemistry. Maybe if it was another actor or actress or whatever, maybe it would have been better. But their chemistry is not something you can really do much about.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you don't have it.
And
yeah,
you
I
know
like
what
that.
else? And you know what else? I would think that I think Hayden gets a lot of crap, but at the same time, um, I think Natalie Portman was overhyped. I don't think she was as great as people really try to make her out to be, and so I think between the way they wrote it and the way those two acted, the three of them made for just a jacked up combination, and so it ended up not being as good as it could have been.
I agree. But again, not to say it wasn't a bad movie. It just it had some bad elements that made it the worst of the three for me.
Well,
Right.
I want to point out, I didn't think it was the worst. I think episode one fell apart. Episode two, to me, yeah, I mean, again, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't cast Hayden Christensen. They had, they could have gotten a better actor.
I mean, George Lucas talked to DiCaprio for a minute about doing that. Could you imagine if he would have played Anakin?
Yeah, but he's kind of delicate, and I remember reading that he wouldn't sign over licensing agreements because even now he doesn't like his face on stuff.
Mm-hmm. It would have been everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the deal. If you sign a deal with Star Wars, your face is permanent. That's it.
Yeah.
Whereas Carrie Fisher used to say, you look in the mirror, you owe George a couple of bucks, or I guess now you owe Disney a couple of bucks. And that was a Carrie Fisher joke, God rest her soul. And to me, again, I liked it because one, I thought the action kicked up a little bit more. I liked the city scenes, and I really enjoyed. The plus side to me was that you saw his descent into the dark side. You saw him killing the Tusken Raiders.
That was a good part.
That was a good scene, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish they would have maybe emphasized it a little bit more, or again a little bit more like if they did mini movies. I always thought they should have done that to fill in gaps because people didn't connect between the first and the second. And you should have seen him training. You should have seen him a little bit more, and then I think if people understood him a little bit more, they would have felt something a little. But you're right. Out of the original trilogy, part 3 to me was the best. I thought that one nailed it. People still complained about it, but to me, I thought I really didn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was very well done compared to the other two. and if Hayden found his groove as Anakin, the darker Anakin in that one. Ewan McGregor obviously was amazing, and just the whole feel of that movie was a lot darker, a lot better. I liked it.
And I think that makes a lot of sense because it was what everybody was wanting was the transition, not so much knowing who Anakin was, but seeing that Anakin transition to the dark side. And I think that's kind of where they ran into issues because they really wanted to build up Anakin as this great guy and then have him turn, but they didn't really work it out as good as they could have.
You didn't get that because I felt like the Clone Wars series that's on Netflix now really helps a lot. Like between 2 and 3, it really tells a lot more stories about Anakin's like heroism in the war, and you can see why he's that great hero, that he's supposed to be.
And I agree with you. I think the
Yeah.
Clone Wars will probably be. I don't think it's been appreciated as much as it deserves to, because people received it as a cartoon, and people don't realize it's canon. The events in the Clone Wars is official Star Wars canon, and little tidbits have showed up in the movies, like the tanks came out in Rogue One and all that, and some of the old Clone War gear has shown up in Rogue One. The Rogue One movie, and sorry.
I think that the problem with Clone Wars is that, well, aside being a cartoon, it's that it's a supplemental material and people are really lazy. And I'm going to go a bit off subject here. Like, for example, the upcoming Infinity War movie. I've heard people complain that, do I have to see all those 18 movies just to get this one? And I'm like, yeah, you kinda. And you've had like a ton of years to do it. Same with Star Wars and Clone Wars. But people, oh, it's a cartoon. I don't like cartoons. And I'm like, trust me, you're going to like it.
I thought, again, the series had some of the best episodes ever for a TV show.
Yeah.
There were some definitely good ones. And, but it was, again, here we are. It was so good, and them bringing up Ahsoka and then not really giving her any play in the movies, and so they almost end up doing a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, why even have her in the Clone Wars if you're not even going to bring her up in the movies and tie everything all together?
Well, that was the big hoopla thing, throughout when the Clone Wars was on. What's going to happen to Ahsoka? What was going to happen to her? And I really enjoyed the final, I guess, official episode when that aired. I don't count the unfinished episodes. I count that as supplemental. But I knew they weren't going to kill that character. It would have been too easy. That would have been the easy answer. She dies, and I knew they weren't going to do that. And out of that whole series, Rex was one of the best ones, and now it's official. Rex was in Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the Battle of Endor. And, and I liked in Rogue One how they had, rebels and all that. But, I knew that with Clone Wars, I knew that it kind of fell off because it was that awkward one. Because it was part of Lucasfilm, but it was before Disney. And I knew that when Disney got bought, and that was the week we had that convention, with Ian, and that was the talk of the whole Comic-Con, that Disney bought Star Wars. And everybody was asking Peter Mayhew about it, and, everybody was asking. And later, well, now, we learned one of the victims was the Clone Wars because Disney doesn't own it. Or, again, they really can't do much because it wasn't part of their work. They're not profiting so much out of it that I'm afraid it's going to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's
that's
been
why
talk
Rebels,
they might take it off Netflix.
Yeah, I think it would, and I think it's just sad that it's going to get forgotten when it was such a great series. And then Rebels, which again ended this year, I thought was good. I really enjoyed it, but I thought, one, it was too localized. And I realized, like in the second season, they weren't going to cover the broad strokes, that they kind of promised. Like in the first season, we saw Antilles. Um, yeah, we saw hints, and then they kind of said, okay, Carrie Fisher. I mean, not Carrie Fisher, but Princess Leia, Lando Calrissian, and then nothing.
Yeah.
And now that it's over and all that, and again, I've enjoyed Rebels. I kind of feel a little disappointed by it.
Well, I mean, there was a lot that, again, it's they have this thing where they really puff up, certain characters, which is good. It's good for the show, but then there isn't any real payoff for them, and that's what gets me, because I mean, it's at the end of the day, these characters still ought to be showing up in the movies at some point. But again, part of the problem is the fact that they're trying to backfill stories, so it's like they're working from behind, and trying to catch up. But it throws things off.
Well, I knew that with Kanan, Jarrus, and Ezra, and then later Ahsoka, that they had to deal with this. And same thing, I was thinking, okay, you have Ahsoka there, and excuse me, you have well, Kanan was there a little bit for the Rebels when the rebellion was going on. That I'm just surprised, that okay, Luke Skywalker never really sought them out, and then we see at the end that we have Ahsoka there. And I just find it hard to believe that Ahsoka didn't seek out Luke Skywalker.
Right.
And then we had that great episode with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Which unfortunately ended like in a 1-second duel.
Yeah.
And so I keep thinking,
well, but it ends in a 1-second duel, but then he goes off and, just as quickly as he kills Maul, he freaking dies to Vader.
And there's fan theories.
I read something, fan theory about the Maul, Obi-Wan duel, because they'd already fought several times, that they kind of both knew each other's repertoire. They knew the moves, and they knew what they were going to do in a fight, and it just kind of like ended, like it did, instead of some big protracted fight, I guess. It's just something I read.
Yeah, the one I read was that Obi-Wan knew his time was up and all that, and because of his heightened force, that he wasn't in the best of health at that point, and and something like he knew he had to do this, and he knew at that moment he had to sacrifice himself, so he was just playing with Vader, just holding him off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, that makes a little more sense. Same thing with yours, Ian. And again, it's all speculation, but the ones that really that I wrestle with are these new ones, and again, we had the old ones, and then we're like, okay, what's Disney going to do? And Disney's doing these new ones. And The Force Awakens, I really enjoyed that one. I don't know why people bash J.J. Abrams. There's parallels to the other Star Wars movies. Yeah, but then there's parallels in everything if you look for it. But I kind of enjoyed Force Awakens. I have to say a little bit more than The Last Jedi.
I think I liked Rogue One better than both of them.
Well, Rogue One, I was saying.
And that didn't even have any Jedis.
I love Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was awesome.
I mean, Darth Vader. For me, Darth Vader is the reason that I love Star Wars so much. So seeing him, wreck a hallway full of rebels was pretty awesome.
That was like the killer episode. I mean, and nobody. I don't think there's anybody that can complain about that scene. If there was a scene that was ever right in Star Wars, it was that one.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I remember a few years ago, me and Crespo talked about that scene, and that scene made the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine how that movie would have been if they took that scene out.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would have
It
been
would have been
good,
an
but it
okay
would have had
movie.
that oomph.
Yeah, first of all, I thought it was awesome that we learned something about Vader, that he gets out of the suit once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just a great little tidbit, and I thought that was a great scene with him and the commander there, and he's like, "Careful, make sure you don't choke on your ambitions."
Yeah.
That was a cool scene, and overall, I really enjoyed Rogue One because to me that was a war movie, not a Star Wars movie. It was in a Star Wars universe, but it was a war movie. Supplemental, badass, awesome.
Yep.
And I'm so glad, there was people who debated about, and we learned now after the fact that it was originally going to have a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of glad that they went with, the bit of the depressing ending.
Well, yeah, we talked about it before because for a while, the movie was called Rogue One, a love story.
It kind of was. And you kind of see certain things in the trailer. I mean, in the trailers where you don't see in the final movie, like in the beginning, in the trailer, you see her limping on top of the station, and then you see the TIE fighter coming up to her and all that. And apparently what it turned out was that she was expecting the end, and she was expecting to be blasted away and all that. But then it turned out it was the French guy, the Captain Andorian guy in the starfighter, and she sets it up to send the coordinates, and then she jumps into the TIE fighter with the guy, and they fly away.
Yeah, that was something they redid, like in reshoots, the ending that ended up in the film.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad they kind of went with the other way, because some war movies you got to show that there's heroes, who sacrifice themselves, and
I mean, look at Saving Private Ryan, the ending of that movie.
And I kind of compared it. You mentioned that, it was a great, that Saving Private Ryan tied into Star Wars. It had a pretty big impact. That one affected me. I really enjoyed that. The cameos I thought were great. People don't realize in that space battle, that was a lot of the original pilots that you saw in episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
The director found extra scenes of the pilots and he CGI'd them into it.
And I love when Red 5 dies in that battle, setting it up for Luke to be Red 5.
It made sense. And if you pay attention, you see the ghosts from Rebels in that battle.
Yep.
For like micro of a second.
Micro of a second. And it's like, it's not a close-up shot. It's a far-off shot, but you can barely just make it out.
Yeah. But, I got to say, jumping into the new ones, I got to jump in because, Ian, I know you loved The Last Jedi. I have it. I want to point out, I have it on Vudu. I've seen it already like 5 times. And I wrestle with that. Honestly, as a Star Wars fan, and Annette can vouch, I kind of, the movie ended and I was like, It took me a while to verbalize. Like I couldn't verbalize for a long time what I thought of it.
Confused for like a whole day. I mean, he was just like, and then like a few minutes later,
a lot happened in that movie. Like if you really think about it, I think more happened in that movie than happened in Force Awakens. It was a little less straightforward. Took a zigzaggy path, and I don't know. I enjoy it for what it was, a Star Wars movie, and I'll never not like a Star Wars movie. I don't care. They could put Jar Jar Binks for 2 hours. It's a Star Wars movie. I'll still watch it. I mean, it's a Star Wars movie, and it just brings back that childhood like feelings and that love for the universe. And
hey, Ian, tell the truth. Tell the truth. You had a Jar Jar Binks plushie, didn't you?
Probably at some point. Like I said, those are my movies.
Yeah.
I had a water squirting Jar Jar.
Well, I mean, like,
We all ended up with some weird episode 1 stuff. Excuse me.
well, with
We
the
all did
Flash
end up with
movie,
some weird episode 1 stuff.
The Yoda 8 ball, my favorite was.
Oh yeah.
Yoda 8-ball.
But I'll have to defend The Last Jedi because people say that it was the most un-Star Wars movie, but it is very Star Wars like. And I'm not gonna go on a long-winded rant here. I'm just gonna say that Luke's actions are totally in character with what Jedi would have done.
I know
Well,
Yoda did it, and Obi-Wan did it, and so there's like a precedent before Luke went into exile and got grumpy.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
the whole
the
grumpy thing.
The thing about though
Yeah.
is that what I liked about it was the fact that, like, it shows how strong the force is within him for him to be able to transport his self to a whole different in a world, right?
Well,
but not really
project.
be there. Yeah, project. But not actually be there.
After he had been disconnected from the Force for how many years, and he was just able to do that.
That just shows how strong the Force is within him to be able to do that.
Well, part of it, let me point out, it wasn't the story so much. I really, at first when it started, I got into it. I was really enjoying it.
Until the cow.
It was very Star Wars. It was in the beginning. Those
the green
bombers,
milk.
those bombers sacrificing themselves, I thought was very Star Wars. And then, but when they kind of lost me, was those little comedic scenes. Like like when Luke Skywalker got the lightsaber and then that dramatic moment, and then he just comedically tosses it back. I did not think that was very Star Wars. And part of it, like dramatically, I would, J.J. Abrams did that. He would just dramatically dropped it and walked away. Not comedically like, whoa, behind me. No, just drop it. And then he wouldn't have a shot of those little porks playing around with it. And we were all wondering if the lightsaber was going to get off and fry one of them. And
fried pork.
And then again, the milking scene.
Oh,
the milking scene.
Gosh, that was just.
Yeah, come on, the milking scene.
Hey. That scene was perfect because it just shows you how messed up in the head Luke wants you to think he is, because he's like trying to do the crazy kooky old guy thing that Yoda did, but ramp it up to 9,000.
Yeah.
Because when Luke's in Dagobah, because I was watching Empire like 2 nights ago, and when Luke's in Dagobah, the little green puppet shows up and starts messing with his gear and all that, and he's like, "Hey, stop it!" and he starts whacking R2. Well, that little crazy old man act that Yoda did, Luke did it, but since Luke is known as recently the greatest hero ever, blah blah blah, defeated the Empire and all that, well, Luke needed to show that he was like a bit more crazier, and that's why he milked that alien cow thing and then drank the milk and looked at Rey like challenging her to question his life decisions.
But I mean, that's something like it looks like he's done it like every day.
Yeah. I don't so much think that
you're crazy every day.
Yeah, I don't so much think that he's crazy as that was something that he had gotten used to doing anyhow.
Well, he has to survive. He has to drink. He has to eat.
And then the judgmental fish nuns.
I tell you what my issues were with The Last Jedi. First was the first battle, and although I found Poe's conversation with Hux extremely comical, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what he was doing, right?
Yeah. That was the funny part. Yeah, I mean that I had no problem with.
Yeah, but then they turn around and they bring in these bombers, and not only do they bring in the bombers, they bring them in, like so tightly packed together that they're just gonna get shot up. I mean, come on, formation. But they forget about the science and the sci-fi, you know, because here they are, they turn around and they drop bombs like, you know, this is World War II and we've got a B-52 bomber, and so they're just, you know, like there's gravity there pulling those things down. That little things like that irritate me. It's like, come on, you know, there's no gravity in space. Why would they just go down? They should just float away. If you wanted them to hit a target, then you should have put something on them.
Keep in mind, this is the one where Leia is Mary Poppins in space.
Yeah, that was another thing that irritated me.
Yeah,
I was like,
that irritated me.
I mean, I wanted her to show that she has a force, and it was an interesting way for them to do it. But at the same time, it was just, you know, yeah, you're right. It was very Mary Poppin, very Mary Poppinish, you know.
It was it was a great way to, I guess, it would have been a great way to kill off her character.
I think so.
They said they didn't want to waste the rest of her performance, and I think it was worth it just for the Luke Leia meeting in the end there on Crate. You know, that was really nice to see, even though he wasn't really there technically.
Right. Yeah, and then you know, the dice. I'm sorry, I don't. Y'all are gonna have to remind me, but I don't remember where the dice came in at.
The dice.
I know the dice. I mean, was it in another movie? Because I don't remember it in the other movie.
Well, the dice was on Han Solo's dashboard.
Right. Yeah, no, I got that, but I'm just saying, what, you know. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, they kind of threw it in there like
in past movies.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, not in the past movies, but you know, it kind of said something that it was solid. She held it in her hand, and then, you know, they dropped it, and then they showed it like when Luke faded, the dice faded, and, you know, which kind of shows how powerful, yeah, he was. But at the same time, yeah, you know, ignoring the physics of sci-fi, and because again, pointing out to Clone Wars, you know, they did have to wear suits. Jedis had to wear suits. Clone Wars, you know, they did many episodes in space, and I have and I collected the toys, and there's Anakin in a spacesuit toy, and then they had the episode where Anakin and Obi-Wan had to be in spacesuits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just, yeah, that part. And I know that in space, you know, if you expose, you know, somebody, you know, and they had like a video on it. If you look at it on YouTube and all that, it said that in space, your skin instantly flash freezes and cracks open. Your lungs explode because the air pressure, you know, forces all oxygen out of your lungs. And so your lungs will cough up, your eyeballs will explode, you know, frozen pieces. And
they were starting to show some of that.
Force works in mysterious ways.
On her.
Well, possibly, maybe, I don't know. It's just maybe, you know, but then if they do that, you know, that's where people say force magic. Okay. But
it kind of it brought the movie to a big grinding halt for that part, you know, because like, wait, what just happened, you know?
Yeah.
And, I don't necessarily agree with that whole thing. But again, it's a Star Wars movie, so I'm happy. I'm happy to see the lightsabers and the space battles and all that.
yeah, the space battles where they're running out of gas.
That's true. But I mean, even in Star Trek, you know, dilithium crystals had to power the warp drive, and eventually they, you ran out of dilithium crystal, and you had to get another one. So I guess they've never established proper technical things in the Star Wars movies.
I don't remember that happening in the Orville.
Not yet. Wait till season 2. No, but no. I'm not disagreeing. Like, okay, the running out of fuel thing. I thought, okay, you know, that kind of worked out, but then that Vegas scene with the Finn and Rose and
but what about right before that, the Maz Kanata scene?
Yeah, and I'm kind of like,
and her talking about, he knew how to work it or something like that. I'm like, And then Ben even gives the look, it's just like I don't
And
know.
same
Man.
thing. You think Maz could have sent help?
Right.
That's how I was. That was actually how I was thinking at the end. At the end, I was gonna, when they were jumping off and all that, I kind of envisioned like Maz with a small army meeting up with her in the
Right.
Millennium Falcon, and them going, okay, this is all we got.
Yep.
Let's see what we can do with this. And seeing where it goes. I thought Maz was gonna, I liked her in the last movie, and I thought she was gonna have a bigger role in this one. And not even like a minute get into it. And, and to me, it kind of felt like they started some ideas in The Force Awakens, and then they kind of just abandoned them. Because, like, to point out, in the beginning of the movie, with Finn, before we see Finn, he was a stormtrooper, and he didn't shoot. And then we saw Kylo Ren looking at him. I thought there was, like, some force.
That's what I thought, too. I agree.
Yeah, that, like, okay, he's not, because they called it The Force Awakens.
Right.
And, like, maybe it's sparking in
It's
other
like they
people.
did it. Yeah, it was like they did a switcheroo. They went making it look like it was going to be Finn, and then turn around and said, "No, Finn, you're not really going to be the Jedi. We're going to have Rey be the sole Jedi." I would have been fine if both of them would have been Jedis.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would have even been fine, like, if they said, "Hey, Rey, you got a lot of, not microchlorians, but, a lot of the Force, and Finn has some." They pointed out that the Force kind of went away, but it's coming back, and it's going to come back strong in some people. Force is strong in her, but it doesn't mean that the Force is strong in everybody.
Right.
There were some weak Jedis who didn't have that great Force abilities.
Well, they have. I've heard it classified as active Force users and passive Force users.
Yeah.
And the passive Force users are the ones that can kind of feel the Force, and like what's his name in Rogue One, Donnie Yen's character.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was more maybe a passive Force user. More than an active one who could actually throw people and use lightsabers and all that stuff. So maybe Finn is more of like a passive Force user. And Rey is like the active Force user who can actually, move rocks around, right?
Yeah, and they would have gotten right into that same concept, because the ending of The Last Jedi kind of like, where are you going with this? With the kids?
Mm-hmm.
That little janitor kid, he uses the Force to get the broom, and
then she took all the ancient texts and everything to start another Jedi.
which to me kind of made it kind of useless, because Yoda called down lightning, which, okay, apparently a Force ghost can still have an effect on the current environment. But he knew the books weren't there. He knew the books weren't there.
Well, that's why he threw off everybody.
Well, that's why he told Luke, already has that which she needs, and he knew she took the books. Yoda knew she took the books. I guess Luke didn't.
Yeah, but part of it was kind of the point they were trying to say was that you don't need, like, to learn the lessons and all that. It's already in you. If you're going to be, on the light side, you're going to be on the light side. If you're going to be on the dark side, it's already in you. You're just learning, some tricks. Which remind me of, like, the one great scene. If you see the deleted scenes, there was one amazing deleted scene where Luke is teaching Rey a lesson about Jedis. And they have the fish people village, and it looked like boats were going in there. And Luke tells her, "Oh, those are pirates. They raid them once a month. And we're just supposed to let it go to keep the balance, because they just go in, they get their stuff, go." Rey's upset. She ignites a lightsaber. You saw her do an awesome backflip. You saw her Force running across the beach. She breaks down the door, which again annoys them. And they were having a party.
Yeah.
That to me would have been a great scene. That's a Jedi lesson right there. But no,
there were several good deleted scenes.
Yeah. But that to me stood out as, that would have been a better scene to show that at least Luke taught her a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Luke showed her, a few things of projection, showed her, how to summon some powers, and all that. But at least Yoda taught Luke some stuff, man.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so Ian,
Even though we argued about it, even though we argued with Obi-Wan about it.
Yeah.
And why did Yoda wait so late? At least when Yoda was having that conversation with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan showed up right then and there and said, "Hey, you need to train him." Why didn't why didn't something similar happen like that at this point? Why didn't Yoda come back quickly and say, "Hey, you need to train him"? That would have made more sense.
Maybe it's the whole Luke has been disconnected from the Force so long that Force Ghost Yoda couldn't reach Luke in time, or that's gonna be the excuse. Like Luke had been disconnected for so long that reconnecting back to the Force took him some time. That's why Yoda took his sweet time to tell him, teach him you must.
Yeah. Ian, I have a question for you. Okay, so do you think that maybe in the next movie that they might show some type of love interest? Because in these last few movies, you've seen Kylo Ren kind of giving Rey the Goo eyes.
Oh, those were the worst hookups ever in Star Wars.
That was actually the Rey Kylo stuff from Last Jedi was actually my favorite part of the movie. I thought they were really well written, the scenes between them, and really well shot. Cinematically they looked very good. And but yeah, the Rey Kylo relationship was definitely my favorite part. I'm interested to see where that goes, because it looked like for a minute there she might join him. It looked like he might turn,
like they're going like a yo-yo back and forth,
Yeah, I mean, if they both stay put, then one of them's gonna have to kill the other one eventually, right? And 9, I think. But
this is where I kind of lost it here, because then they talked about a balance, and they said, okay, there's always going to be a good, there's always going to be a bad, and here's where the two are, and this is where I kind of thought, where they kind of told me, okay, the Force has selected these two to be the balance. That's why when they used that Force power for the lightsaber, they tore the lightsaber apart.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me. And so part of it, I kept thinking, okay, this is the balance. This is the yin and yang. Then, which leaves a question. They talked about the Knights of Ren. Where are they? Are they Force users? Are they? Again, they did not touch on that subject at all. And I keep thinking, okay, and so now Kylo Ren is the new Grand Leader, the first leader, whatever, and which is like the most ridiculous thing. That guy doesn't even look like he could run a Burger King, and and I just keep thinking where they're going to go with the next one. I mean, a full-out rebellion now? Is it because it looks like they're that the First Order is conquering the universe, that they've won because nobody answered Princess Leia's or General Leia's call. Nobody answered it. So I'm thinking okay, everybody's just kind of gave up. And then what now? Where are you going to go with this? And honestly, I honestly blame the director for it, because he did. I understand the themes he was going to, kind of show that the line will continue. This is the battle. The new generation is picking it up. This is what kind of General Leia kind of sat down and said, "You're in charge now," to Poe. The new guys, and I expect, Leia's daughter to be in the movie, maybe to have a more important role. I think they would probably do that to honor Carrie Fisher. But I just really struggle with where they're going to take this, and they have to conclude it.
I'm gonna be really upset if they don't do something profound with the Knights of Ren, because to me, I think it'll be another one of those situations where they put so much into something and don't give it a payoff. And I'm like, at this point, now that Rey has hooked back up with Poe and with Finn, that now she's starting to get her crew together, and it would only be fitting if Kylo would get his crew together, because now he's lost Phasma.
Well, we don't know.
Conceivably.
Oh, Phasma's dead, man. She's gone. Unless she's a Force user, she's gone.
Well, Boba Fett is still around.
But that, but Boba Fett's different. I mean, he had a jetpack. She didn't. She fell into the flames.
It takes 1,000 years to digest stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like the Sarlacc pit actually, the jaws actually work. They're just there for decoration. So, I believe Boba Fett got out. I think he crawled his way out.
Well, I think we can all agree we need a big payoff for the next one.
Yeah, we do. Well, it needs to wrap it up, nicely. I think, JJ, he did one. He's heard the criticisms of Force Awakens. He's seen and heard the criticisms of Last Jedi. I think he's going to take all that and hopefully make a good final chapter for this trilogy.
I'm going to say my opinion. I don't think J.J. Abrams liked it. I don't think that was what he envisioned for the next one.
It's not, because he wrote a spec script, a draft for Episode 8, and gave it to Rian Johnson. And from what I've heard, Rian Johnson threw that thing out. He took like a couple things from it and he threw it out. That's why so many like ideas and storylines and stuff seem to just kind of be thrown to the wayside in The Last Jedi, because he didn't take it where JJ was going to take it.
That's a little disappointing, because you need one person to take this whole universe somewhere. And they've done that. Marvel Comics has done that with their movies. They've had the four main guys from Marvel Comics. And since Iron Man, they've had a vision of where they're taking their movies. And they've said the vision has changed, and of course, everything should have some flexibility, but they've said they've generally followed that outline.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always good to have a plan. As a writer, when you do stories and all that, you should always have a plan. But of course, plans change. George Lucas has admitted that his plans have changed. And he had his own story, which his was kind of the kids, continuing the saga and all that, kind of more of the expanded universe kind of vision, which I knew they weren't going to do that when Disney bought
Right.
Star Wars. I knew, because everybody knew, those who read the novels. And I'll be honest, I'm not a huge novel reader for Star Wars. I read more Star Trek books than I actually can manage to read Star Wars, because some Star Wars books I've picked up have just bothered me, and I haven't liked their vision of it. And here I kind of feel that's kind of the thing. I kind of saw what the director wanted to do, and there were parts that I loved, and I got the story, but then at the same time, that's what just threw me off. And I think now, jumping to now, the Star Wars, the producers and Disney kind of figured out, okay, we can't let this run away. And I think they kind of admitted that Star Wars, The Last Jedi, kind of got away from them. And that's why I'm really crossing my fingers for Solo, because we know the story. They had two directors, the guys who directed the Lego movie, which I keep thinking, why did you get these guys to do a Star Wars movie? They've never done an action movie, unless you count the Lego movie.
They did the 21 Jump Street with Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. They did those two movies.
Yeah, but even then, those weren't deep. I mean, that wasn't a deep movie.
Oh yeah, they were.
That was just deep. Very.
They were comedy action movies, but I thought they were pretty funny.
Well, yeah, funny, yes, but Star Wars.
I mean, I feel the same way, honestly, with all the people they picked to do the Star Wars movies outside of Abrams, because Rian Johnson, not a very established director before this, he did Looper. And then Garth Edwards had done I forget the one big movie he did before Rogue One, and Colin Trevorrow, the guy that was supposed to do 9, had done like one big movie before. They got a bunch of indie,
He did
like
Kong Skull Island.
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
And they got a bunch of like indie kind of guys to do all these movies. They should have just gone with the more established Abrams and Ron Howards and whatever.
Well, I think generally, again, just to point out, for the viewers who are not aware of it, the Han Solo movie was one way. They were shooting it, and they were like about halfway, 50% done when the Disney studio looked at it and they saw the footage, they saw everything, and they were like, oh my God, we got to shut this down. And they did. And first of all, I got to emphasize, for a film studio to do that on a major blockbuster movie, and Han Solo was a major blockbuster movie, took more money than you can imagine. Took a lot. And they had to tell everybody, we're shutting down production. And for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, they closed everybody. They gave everybody a vacation, paid vacation. That was part of the contract. They had to pay everybody not to work. And they rewrote everything. And luckily, they went out. They got on their hands and knees. And they probably threw Ron Howard tons of money. I imagine what they did, because Ron Howard doesn't need to work. He doesn't need to do anything, but he does it because he does it. Right. And he's probably in his mansion, and they're like, the executive of Disney's here, and he's like, well, bring him in. Do this movie. Well, I'm kind of busy. Here's a lot of money. Well, and I imagine Disney kind of said, look, we'll do your next 3 movies. Okay, I'll sign. Because that's really what directors want. But they do studio movies, and then they want to do their own movies.
To be fair, they had to stop Solo because the description about it was Ace Ventura in space, practically. So Ace Ventura and Star Wars are 2 things that do not mix. As much as I love that type of comedy, it's not what I'd like to see in Star Wars. And I want Solo to be cool. I want Solo to be awesome. But to be honest, I'm not feeling too hopeful about it. And I don't mean it to be like negative or anything. It's just that I'm not looking at the bad issues about Ace Ventura in space being reshot and everything. It's just that I have a bad feeling about it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like
I have a bad feeling
something
about this.
off.
Well, I just hope that with the movie, he has to hit that arrogance, but at the same time, you could be arrogant and not be be in a comedy as well.
Well, and it hit it. I mean, Harrison Ford, you cannot replace Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford has arrogance, but charm.
Yeah, that's
only me and him can do that.
Charm. And this kid looks cocky, but I don't see the Harrison Ford charm, which, to be honest, it's what makes Han Solo so endearing.
He doesn't have I said this last time we talked. He doesn't have, at least from the commercials, he hasn't studied Harrison Ford. He's just acting the way he knows how to act, and he's not channeling, that Han Solo. He's not mimicking Han Solo at all.
Well, what I'm hoping for, and I'm hoping that the arrogance will, or again, that at some point, maybe because this movie so far what we've picked up, and we're not giving spoilers because we haven't seen the movie. We've seen the trailers and all that. It looks like it's a heist movie. It looks like it's the first time Han Solo meets Chewbacca.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like this is him starting out. And so I'm hoping that maybe in the progression of the movie, we get to see him be the Han Solo cockiness. Well, in the beginning, he's just arrogant, but he needs that lesson.
I think he's going to have that cockiness and stuff. But as far as the charm, you only need the charm when you're charming a woman or trying to charm your way out of a problem.
And that's Han Solo.
You know, you know. But since this is the beginning, he may not even have those type of problems quite yet. You know, so he may only have like 1 or 2 scenes where you'll see his charm, but not to the full extent that we're used to.
Well, and it's true though. I do think, I mean, the weight of Star Wars is on this movie, because if this movie bombs, and it's not going to be a financial bomb, it's going to make their money. But if this movie gets just the hate, if it gets the hate, then it's pretty much going to kill any future Star Wars movie, which is a really shame, because Rogue One was a chance. And the Disney studio took a chance with Rogue One, and it paid off. It was a beautiful film. I enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite films. But Han Solo has to be great. It can't be okay. It has to be great, because they're going to judge saying, okay, this movie, didn't do great. So you know what? We're pulling the plugs on all these Star Wars movies. Forget it. And so, no, they gotta pull it off, and they gotta make this a great movie, because then they're like, okay, it did great, so we can continue. Maybe do a Han Solo 2 movie. Go on with the. There's talk of a Boba Fett movie. There's talk of Obi-Wan movie.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and I even would like to say that it would have been awesome if, and again, fat chance of this, but I would like to see an Anakin movie. Not with Hayden Christensen, of course, but when Luke was when Anakin was like 20 years old, Clone Wars, showing what a badass Jedi he really was. For those that didn't see the cartoon,
only Anakin I want to see is Anakin as Vader.
Agreed.
Well, but to be fair, we've gotten like 6 movies of Darth Vader.
I don't think a Vader movie works.
Enough.
Maybe him as the bad guy, but having Vader as a protagonist is always very difficult.
Have you guys read this run of Darth Vader comics that they're doing right now?
Well, comics, but the film.
Man, well, yeah, I mean, I know film, but just to bring, I don't know if you guys read the Star Wars comics that Marvel releases at all, but man, this is the best they've done since Disney bought. Since I've started releasing these comics through Marvel, highly, highly recommend this series of Darth Vader if you guys haven't read it yet.
Well, I've been looking at them, but I mean, like I said, I struggle with Star Wars fiction outside of the movies. I swear, I've tried to read. I've read some good. There were some great novels.
The Thrawn trilogy was on point. That was probably one of the best, well-written ones.
Timothy Zahn is a hell of a writer.
Yeah.
Those were really good books.
And there was a lot of Clone Wars that I liked. I read a few of the Clone War novels, and that's why I said I would have liked to have seen, because I always felt like they needed to establish Anakin as the badass Jedi, the hero, before he became Vader, and then kind of a little bit more. But again, I don't think we're going to see that. And here, after Star Wars, after this last movie, they're going to do the, part, oh, geez, man, 9. And we're going to have to say, okay, what do we do now? Where do we go? And you can't end Star Wars.
We only have Ryan Johnson's trilogy is already on the books already. They're already doing that. So there's at least 3 more that are going to be after Solo and Episode 9.
Which we don't know what they're about yet, but I'm worried, And so that's why, again, we got to come back and do a review. And our time is coming up here. It's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. And so, Ian, again, remind us again about May the 4th.
All right. Our May the 4th Star Wars Night celebration is here in El Paso, Texas at the Pizza Joint downtown. That'll be from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. It's free, all ages. Parking might be a hassle because you know how downtown is, but other than that, it should be a really good time. We got Star Wars trivia, character drawing, cosplay, gaming. you name it. It's going to be a fun 5-6 hours of Star Wars. So hope you guys can join us.
Crespo, we should fly out for that.
Well,
if I wasn't broke, I totally would.
well, again, it sounds great. I mean, again, it's going to be awesome. We're going to be there. It's going to be a great time. But before we go, and I'm sure, and people ask, Ian, come on. You got to have a con.
We are having a con.
No,
we just
you know what I
announced
mean.
it.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get you to.
So Sun City Comic Con is Saturday, September 15th. It is the first in our new line of, instead of doing weekend-long cons, we're going to do single-day cons on Saturdays. So that's Sun City Comic Con. The venue we're finalizing right now. We'll announce it within the next couple weeks, but we are having Eddie Nunez. He is a DC Comics artist. He worked on the Arkham Asylum video games, as well as for DC Online. So he will be our headlining guest, as well as Christina Dark. You guys know her. She's a great cosplayer. And Rudy Vasquez, who's from Inkworks and Carnival Comics. He is going to be one of our guests as well. So we're trying to take it back, have a nice Comic-Con featuring local people that have risen up their ranks in their professions.
That's
well,
awesome.
again, everybody here in the El Paso community is glad to have you guys back. We've missed you guys.
We're very glad to be back.
Yeah, and we hope to see more of you guys. So thank you, Ian, for joining us. Thank you, everybody out on internet land and all that, for joining us. Stay tuned when we'll be back to talk about, oh man, is the Avengers coming up?
Next week.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lordy.
Coming up
no,
fast.
we're not going to see that movie. Nobody's going to go see that.
Who wants to see Grimace looking for jewelry?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's Grimace looking for jewelry. And where's Hawkeye?
I know.
He's probably the one filming.
Where's Hawkeye? And the looming question is, are they going to put a Starbucks in Wakanda?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Remember to catch the latest nerd news on Nerds on a Couch, our Facebook page. Also, give a shout out to our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. And Ian, we hope to be there.
And Twitter.
Thanks.
All right.